Hey everyone, this is Julius from the Goat Movie Podcast. I am here to introduce the Fantastic Four portion of our narrative saga leading up to the Great Secret Wars. These past 3 weeks we released videos, old videos starting in 2019 about the X-Men. We have parts 1 through 3, and you can listen to those and enjoy the stories that we read, along with the great discussions between Angel and myself. But today we're starting with the Fantastic Four, the world's greatest family. We're going to have 4 parts of this, and then eventually we will get to Secret Wars parts 1 and 2. But this is where the real story begins. So get ready, enjoy. This originally premiered in August of 2019, I believe. So keep that in mind, enjoy, have a great one, and goodbye.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening and watching. This is the Goat Movie Podcast. My name is Angel.
Oh, and I'm Julius.
We love talking about movies. We're extremely excited today. We're even interrupting each other today.
Yeah.
But we got
I've been waiting.
we got some great stuff for you today. On this episode, Julius is going to share his ideas. He's becoming Reed Richards today and sharing his pitch for a MCU Fantastic Four movie. So Julius, I want you to take it away, take us into another dimension, into a fantastic world with these characters.
Well, that's a good call.
What do you got for us?
Well, I mean, I am Reed Richards. That's what it is. You know, I remember him in the Rise of Silver Surfer, and he just came out with that Silver Surfer name out of his this Silver Surfer TM. I trademarked that, by the way.
Oh man.
Yeah. So for those who are not familiar with these types of podcasts that we do, Angel and I have done X-Men podcasts. Yeah. 3 parts, 3 phases of the X-Men in the MCU, and those are lots of stories right there that you can listen to. Maybe you'll hate them, maybe you'll love them. Hey, you listen to them anyway. Yeah. So hopefully that's the case with this Fantastic Four video. So basically with the Fantastic Four, we all know who these people are. We all know that the Fantastic Four are characters that are very special to comic books, but specifically Marvel Comics. They really did change the layout for Marvel Comics. They interconnected everything with those characters. You know, it's like, hey, we're Fantastic Four. We're kind of a reference and a response to the Justice League, but we're going to bring in Spider-Man in an issue, or we're going to introduce Black Panther, or the Inhumans, or Galactus and Silver Surfer, you know, the Watchers, all these things that are very spatial and very based in everything else come from Fantastic Four. You know, this is the world's greatest family for a reason, you know? So we have to implement that into the MCU. We have to push family in a way that we'd never, ever before in the MCU.
I agree.
Obviously, there are a lot of different films in the MCU that have already done this, like Ant-Man is a big one, Guardians of the Galaxy
1 and 2.
Absolutely, and hopefully 3. The Avengers films have definitely pushed the team aspect of family, but this is a movie that is a family drama. The title of our film right now is Fantastic Four Foundation.
Oh my God!
So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, before we start, is there anything you want to recommend? By the way, did you listen to that playlist I sent you?
No, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I listened to the first few songs.
Dr. Doom, piece of shit.
I loved. I was in Latveria, trapped. I couldn't listen to the whole playlist.
Okay, well, like with the X-Men films, I put together a playlist that I'm going to link in the description for those who want to get an idea of what this film could be like. Hopefully Angel will listen to it in full when the video comes out. So that happened. Okay, before anything, do you think, like, what are you thinking I might go for?
I don't know. I think you might go for the heavy utilization of dimension jumping, probably, since the multiverse has been introduced, and you know, Reed could be seen as like the godfather of traveling through different dimensions and stuff. You know, Tony figured out time travel.
Yeah. This
guy's going to figure out how to jump from one place to another.
I like that.
And, you know, family is at risk when you're jumping in different dimensions. You know, the stakes are high.
The stakes is high.
In whatever dimension you're in. So I feel like maybe that might be the focus.
I like that. He's the Marlon Brando of science right now. All right, let's do it. Our story begins at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology on May 6th, 2016. In his experimental physics 2 class, Professor Reed Richards, who is a mid-30s, tall, and very confident, professor, he's giving a lecture on the Mass-Bauer effect. It's a theory that proved that emission and absorption of gamma rays into solids with no recoil. It's a very influential thing. He's talking about it because he's Reed Richards.
Yeah.
It was discovered by Rudolf Mossbauer, a very famous physicist. He dismisses his students a tad early so they can catch the special assembly being held on the other side of campus. He leaves his class, greeting passing faculty. Reed is very well respected and popular amongst the staff of MIT. He meets his fiancée, Professor Susan Storm. Early 30s, she's sophisticated. She's a professor of bioengineering, which are actual classes at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The two's big day has been pushed back because of their work, but it's now scheduled for October later that year. They ask how each other's day was, both a bit exhausted but with fingers crossed in regards to the big assembly the whole school is headed towards. She asks how her younger brother Johnny, who is in his early 20s right now, is doing in Reed's class. Reed is coy and unsure of how to answer the question, but
He's failing.
Yeah. But Sue pulls it out of him. It's like, come on, baby, just give me the answer. Reed is convinced that Johnny doesn't care about his academics and wants the easy way paved with mink and A+s from his best brother-in-law. Sue laughs and says they're gonna switch places. Reed will go get Johnny, and she will go get his best friend, Ben. And they'll all meet at the assembly. Reed is apprehensive, but goes along with it because he doesn't wear the pants right now. Sue stops at a classroom that's wrapping up about aerodynamics, being taught by Professor Ben Grimm, who's in his late 30s. He's bulky, but he's also confident. Grimm dismisses the class and greets Sue. He flirts a bit with the married woman, and it'd be a lie to say that Sue wasn't slightly delighted by it. Ben asks how Reed is feeling about the assembly. Does he think they'll get the green light on the project? Sue doesn't know exactly how one of the brightest minds on the planet would deal with internal stress. But she does know that he's never been so excited and scared at the same time before. Ben tells her that's because she hasn't been best friends with Reed for 30 plus years. They laugh and they head to the hall. Reed finds Sue's younger brother, Johnny Storm, hitting on two different girls from two of Reed's different classes. Their exchange is awkward but respectful. Reed brings up Johnny's attitude towards his class and schooling in general. Johnny tells him that he's at MIT just because Sue got him in, and that he doesn't want to disappoint her by dropping out, but he doesn't want to be lame and actually do the work. What do you want out of life, Johnny? And Johnny immediately asks for a super-powered suit, since, Reed likes science and shit like that. He asks Johnny, you want to be a superhero? Johnny denies it, saying that heroes don't get paid to clean up their own messes. Johnny would want to get rich and famous like that. Reed tells him, well, in that case, you're going to love this assembly, I'm sure. The two walk off to the assembly. In the hall, a presentation is being given on binarily augmented retroframing, or simply BARF, by Tony Stark. Reed, Sue, Ben, and Johnny are in the audience.
There they are.
They watch as the Avenger shows off his new technology, assisted by a holographic reading prompt above the audience. Reed notices near the exit hall a colleague of his. The man meets his eyes with Reed, and they nod to each other as the man exits. Ben notices Johnny playing a game on his phone. He asks if he cares that an Avenger is right in front of him or not. Johnny tells him that he doesn't really care, and that he'll be bigger than him one day. Stark announces that all MIT projects are now funded by Stark Industries, and to go break some eggs. The crowd exhausts themselves by the way of applause. Stark exits the stage back to his life, back to the Avengers. I don't know what's going to happen with the Avengers. Maybe some shit's going down.
I don't know.
Reed sits amongst the applause in disbelief. Sue kisses him, saying that they're finally able to change the world. The professor leaves in a hurry off to catch his colleague, the one who left earlier. Mm-hmm. Through the halls, Reed calls for his friend, Victor! Victor is mid-30s, European, and a bit angsty. He tells Victor that he heard of his sudden resignation. It's like, you're leaving MIT. Where are you headed off to? Victor tells him that he refuses to accept the money of one so inferior to himself as Stark, especially since Stark and his action figures are responsible for the destruction of his home country, Sokovia, earlier the year before. Victor's people need someone to build them from the ground up, and he is that man. Reed wishes him luck. He just thanks his old friend. Sue catches up to both of them, and Victor gives her a look filled with love, regret, and fear. Victor leaves. Reed turns to Sue and says, "It's time to get to work." Due to the donation by Stark Industries, Reed and Sue are finally fiscally ready to fund their project titled the Future Foundation. The Foundation's mission to expand on the life-held theories of parallel Earths and the multiverse. They're researching the multiverse. Their research is founded upon the science of Stephen Hawking and Max Tegmark, but expanded by Reed Richards. Reed and Sue design a machine that will, in theory, open a gateway to another world and work on building it. But during this process, Reed is more standoffish. He's like, "No, my math is correct, Sue. Okay, my math is correct." And she's a bit... She has to deal with it because, they're fiancés and everything, but he's very standoffish on his work.
Yeah.
They schedule the day of testing a week before their wedding. That way, both their dreams come true right next to each other. The couple bring on Ben and Johnny for physical labor. The two work together and bicker at each other more and more and more as time goes on. For the next 5 months, they work hard on math, engineering, and creation of their other Earth engine. On the day of testing, the four are suited up in special white radiation suits. They enter the testing chamber, while colleagues and members of the school's board watch from a safe enclosed viewing room. They activate the machine. Slowly, it stirs as light flashes, and the room gets steadily hotter. Ben stands looking at the effect their machine has had on lights above. It's like flickering light. Johnny breathes deeply, worried that they don't know what they're doing. Sue is stunned at how far they've come and looks at Reed's face. He's glowing with pride. He looks at his fiancée. They're changing the world. Nothing can go wrong right now. The camera dollies into Dr. Richards' face as the light from the engine grows and grows and grows. We cut to black. 8 years later. It's 2024, and Reed Richards, who's in his mid-40s, he has a beard, he's lifeless, sits in a chair across from someone off camera. It's his first therapy session, but will it be his last? Will he just sit there for the next 10 years waiting for change rather than making it happen himself? He's asked why he thinks that might be, and it's because it's basic probability. First is an instance, second, a coincidence, third, a pattern. Why do people come to basic therapy? Because it seems easier to pay someone to listen rather than to take care of it yourself for free. He's asked, do people not need help at times? From what the therapist knows, Reed often was open to a helping hand in the lab from time to time. Reed ponders the point made and stays silent when asked, how would you like to get back to that, Reed? 1 foot at a time, which could be 10 years, or not at all. Reed leaves the appointment, roaming the streets of New York City. He sees the world move past him as he feels stuck. Near the Rockefeller Center, he recognizes a younger man entertaining a small group of tourists who take pictures of him doing some magic tricks. And this man is juggling small fireballs, swallowing hot sticks, all that hot shit. And it's Johnny Storm, who's nearly 30, he's tired, he's miserable, and he's bone skinny. He stands before the small crowd with a coffee mug in front of him filled with a few dollars in change. He notices Reed and wraps up the show. The two reunite, but Johnny can barely look at his former teacher. Reed asks, What happened? You wanted to be famous, and you had powers, so why are you begging on the streets? Johnny tells him that he didn't realize how many other people there were with the same ambition as him, plus the powers. No one cares because there are so many like him. In fact, here comes one right now. The crowd surrounding the two roar as their friendly neighborhood Spider-Man swings past them. In the Rockefeller Center, the tourists, they chase after the web slinger, who goes around the corner swinging and whooping and all that good stuff. Johnny watches his audience, his barely anything audience, run away. He blames Reed for where he is in life. I can actually fly, Reed, but so can everyone else. Johnny picks up his act and leaves his former brother-in-law. Reed is riddled with guilt. The professor makes it to his lab and current living situation at the Baxter Building, a cold, stale, and colorless building, centered by one security guard named Willie, who's in his 70s, he's badass, he's got a big Lieber mustache. Reed's up on the 23rd floor, looking out to the rest of the city. Though it's 9:23 p.m., the coffee's still on. He reaches out across the room from the window to the kitchen with a 9-foot arm, grabbing his cup of joe. Sipping it, he enters his work area, pulling out old files labeled Foundation. The files incorporate old physicals and medical assessments of himself and his former family, Johnny Storm, Ben Grimm, and Susan Storm. The files detail the genetic mutations that occurred to their bodies on the testing day 8 years ago. So this is our visual exposition of what happened. The Human Torch, the Thing, Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman. This is where we see it, so we don't have to go through the origin again. Even though we are. He pulls out a big scribbled on whiteboard riddled with theories and failed data that could revert their mutations and send them back to normal. He stays up for hours sipping his coffee, refilling and staring at the board, but nothing. He has nothing. Reed slams the coffee down on the floor, but is interrupted by a colleague of his, Dr. Arthur Molkovic. He's very short, he's early 60s, he's a very greasy, creepy man. The doctor approaches Reed and his work, never seeing it before. He's fascinated by the calculations and offers his advice, but Reed is hesitant. He has the problem, quote-unquote, handled. Molkovic tells him that, "You're a stubborn ass." So much that you don't even realize that the answer has been smashed near your feet for 2 whole minutes. Reed and Molkovic look down at the broken coffee mug. Reed's elder explains to him that what he did 8 years ago with that project was not only find some exotic cosmic energy that latched itself onto him and his friends while peeking into the multiverse, but he created a small fracture within the walls of reality. Look at the shards made from the cup as the shell of reality, and the coffee as its blood. For 8 years, it hasn't been bandaged or healed. Reed asks if they recreate the experiment but reverse it, would it cure his friends and himself? Molkovic is 68% sure and would conduct the experiment himself, but is far too busy with his own work. Reed thanks the doctor for his input, but Molkovic tells him that when he fails, the funding will transfer from Reed's department to his own. So, good luck. Richards responds telling Molkovic that the U.S. government is going to take his idea of mole men as serious as an expedition to find Atlantis. Molkovic leaves the professor. Reed draws up the plans to rebuild the Other Earth engine once again. He spends weeks, nearly months, getting the equipment together, getting grants from nearby universities and labs, working his heart out on the device. He's nearly ready to fix reality, but there's one last step: getting the band back together. In the days leading up to the next experiment, Reed finds Johnny on another avenue performing for some kids who are more interested in their phones than a man who can create fire with his hands. Richards comes up to the entertainer, who is now annoyed by him. Reed tells him that he's found a way to fix everything, to give him a chance at a normal life. Maybe not filled with the glitz or glamour that he was hoping for, but more than just begging on the streets. Johnny tells him that he doesn't need Reed's help to gain respect or reach success. Right after saying this, the kids leave Johnny, flipping him off and telling him, "Hey, flame on, douchebag." Johnny feels the comments, Reed tells him that the day of the experiment is the 4th of June at 12:15 p.m. if he changes his mind. Reed walks away from Johnny, who starts to rethink his life. Before Reed is gone, Johnny asks what Sue said to his offer. Reed hasn't asked her. He hasn't talked to her in years. Johnny tells him, "Even though I hate you right now, I'm sorry for what you're about to go through." Reed leaves. Days later, Reed lands in Charles, Maryland. There, he drives up to a property that is small but wholesome. Knocking on the front door of a nice house, Reed waits for an answer. His former friend, Ben Grimm, now giant, with skin made up with an orange-tinted rock substance, he meets with Ben. They take a minute to reconnect. He asks how Reed has been. "Good. And you?" Ben tells him that over the past couple years, he's found peace within himself, but he did so with some help. Reed asks about Sue, and Ben calls for her. In the hallway behind, Sue turns from invisible to visible, revealing that she was listening to their conversation the whole time. She wears a wedding ring on her finger that matches the ring Ben has around his neck. Reed looks at them now as a married couple. In the living room,
Damn.
It'd
be your own, man.
In the living room, the three sit, drinking some coffee. Reed tells them about the experiment, the chance they have to bring everything back to how it was. The couple is unsure of the offer, silent. Reed assumed they'd be ecstatic, especially Ben. He could go from rock monster to normal like that, but for Ben, the past 8 years have been normal. Better, actually, thanks to Sue and his new outlook. Sue is asked by the two what she thinks. She just leaves the room heartbroken. Reed sits, unsure of what he did wrong. Ben goes after his wife, who tells him that she just can't have this conversation. Ben comes back to Reed, who tells him that he has to go. Ben walks Reed to his car. He tells him that he's sorry if things are weird between the two of them. Reed says that an apology is unnecessary. He gets why anyone would fall for Sue. The offer still stands, and the couple knows when and where the experiment will be. Ben pats his friend on the back, and Reed leaves. Sue watches Reed off from her bedroom window with a tear in her eye. Later that night, at the Grim Storm residence, Sue is doing some late-night dishes as Ben comes up to her. Ben tells her that he has to go through with the experiment. Sue is shocked. What about all that stuff about inner peace he told Reed? Ben lied to him. Reed, his oldest friend, someone who was bullied throughout life but eventually rose above it and was led to success. Sue asks her husband why he feels he has to compare himself to Reed. Sue tells Ben that human connection means more to life than doctorates or PhDs. Ben agrees and says that he wants to hold Sue with his actual hands. He doesn't want her to kiss a stone every time. Reed can make that happen. He can help this man, this monster. Sue listens to her husband and tells him that monsters only think of themselves. You're not a monster, Ben. Sure, Ben was a hunk before they changed, but Sue looked into his eyes. He was a good and loyal man before, and especially after they all changed. Reed left them all, but he didn't. If he's going to go through the experiment, then so will she. They do this together, and when it's over, nothing but a normal marriage from then on. It's June 4th, 11:47 a.m., the day of the experiment. Johnny Storm walks up to the entrance of the Baxter building with $5 Rite Aid sunglasses and a soda from the vending machine down the street. He's called by his older sister, who approaches him with Ben. The brother and sister hug, and Johnny and Ben instantly jab at each other, just like the good old days. The three are greeted and welcomed by Reed, and at the doors of the Baxter. It becomes quiet as they enter. Reed tries his best to excite them for the experiment. They aren't very responsive, but he still tries. They're given special radiation suits, this time colored blue. As Johnny and Ben enter the testing chamber, Reed is told by Johnny to try and not ruin their lives again. Sue comes up to Reed, asking if he wants her to double-check his math before the test. Reed tells her that she doesn't need to worry and soon everything will go back to normal. She tells him somberly, not everything. The four are in the chamber, suited up, ready. Reed activates the machine, and the device whirs as lights spark. Reed remembers his second meeting at the therapist the day before. Flashback to yesterday, June 3rd, the day before the test. Reed sits in the same chair, across from the off-camera therapist. The therapist is admittedly surprised that Reed came back, but not sure why. Reed isn't sure if he's right. Trying to help his friends, no matter what, he's going to change their lives tomorrow, again. The therapist asks, don't we do that every day? The people we love, aren't their lives changed by us every day? You've been gone, Reed. For a long time, you haven't given yourself a chance to take that risk. Reed fears that if he fails again, he'll lose his family forever. The therapist asks, if you truly failed in the first place, why are they coming back to you? Back in the present, the experiment continues, and Reed watches his machine work. Little flat bubbles that peek holes into the multiverse appear and disappear around the four, around the lab. A giant flash of interdimensional energy hits the four. They're knocked back, and the machine breaks under the pressure. The four get up slowly, but they're not changed. They're still with their abilities. Ben hits the ground, shaking the chamber. He's pissed. He's like, what? I thought this was going to work. Johnny is a bit underwhelmed, now trying to think of other tricks he can use for tomorrow's street show. Reed leaves the room, ashamed. Sue looks at Ben, who tells her to go talk to him, for she's the only one he'll really listen to. So she goes off. Reed is in his office, looking over his notes, whiteboards, everything. He's enraged and throws them all over the place. Sue comes in, trying to calm him down. She tells him that it's okay, and maybe there isn't a cure because they're not diseased or infected. Reed tells her that he owed her this. He owed her so much. Sue tells Reed that he doesn't need to carry this cross. He wasn't alone 8 years ago, or even now. So why does he think the whole thing is his fault? He tells her because he was embarrassed that day. He wanted to prove that he could be good enough for her. Sue tells him that he had already done that. The reason she left him was because he kept distancing himself from their family. Sue tells her ex that when he came to her in Ben's home, she was worried that day. Not because of the awkwardness or anything like that, but because of what Reed really did want. What did a successful test really mean to him? She knows him pretty well to say that He thought that they'd end up back together if he cured her. Reed, I have a life with Ben. I'm here for him, yeah, but I'm also here for you. I'm here so 8 years ago will stay 8 years ago. Reed understands, finally, and tells her that he's so sorry. She knows, and for a moment, they silently hold hands. Ben and Johnny walk the halls of the Baxter, trying to get their suits off. Johnny hopes he can keep it and use it for a third chance at the entertainment business. Ben asks why Johnny is so worried about his image, and Johnny laughs, saying, "Yeah, okay, Easter Island, you're one to talk." Ben is silent. Johnny mentions that back at MIT, he remembers Ben being very secure with himself, not caring what other people say. That's obviously why Ben came to the experiment, because he's worried what Sue thinks of him. Ben denies, saying that he's doing this for Sue, but Johnny just keeps on going. Dude, she married you. And one thing about my sister, she's not easily guilted into things. Love chipping at you, but you're a good guy. Honestly, Johnny is jealous of Ben's power. There's no way someone who looks like that doesn't get famous. Ben mentions that Johnny might care a bit too much of what other people think also. The two appreciate each other's words, but are interrupted. Ben hears something down the hall, a soft moaning. They're approached by Willie, the guard, but he's different. He's stumbling and a tad more gray. He rushes the two, attacking Ben, but is not strong enough to hurt him. Willie tries biting Ben, but chips his teeth on the very rocky skin. Johnny cowers behind Ben, asking, "What's up with Willie?" Ben tells him, "I don't think he's Willie. This guy's a zombie." Ben knocks the zombie down. Unconscious? Dead? He's down. That's what's important. Reed and Sue are in the lab, looking over the blueprints of the machine, looking for where Reed lost his way. They're approached by Dr. Molkovic, who awkwardly compliments Sue, saying that a pure atom isn't structured as beautifully as your visage. Molkovic starts to belittle Reed's ability right after, as a scientist, having heard how big a failure his most recent experiment was. As Reed and Molkovic bicker, Johnny and Ben enter the lab with the corpse of the zombified Willie. They lay him on a table, and Sue examines him since she's a professor of bioengineering. She confirms that he's dead, so how was he able to come back and attack Ben? Molkovic asks the better question, how can this zombie be here when Willie is standing guard downstairs? He points at a monitor where the other four see a live security footage of Willie guarding the front desk all the way downstairs. This zombie Willie is from a completely different universe. He must be. Sue suggests that maybe the experiment caused a shifting rift between the walls of reality. 8 years ago, the shift was slow, but not too hazardous. Now, doing it again is just widening the hole. Reed agrees and decides that they have to close the hole immediately. They know the experiment won't work again, so how do they close it? Ben asks, how is he sure that it won't work again? He didn't let anyone check his notes of his work. Maybe if he gets a second pair of eyes. Reed carries on about how his math is never wrong, and the room starts to fill with debate. Johnny, who's out of touch with all this science jargon, he just notices on the monitor that downstairs a giant light flashes before Willie at the front desk. He tells the others to look at the feed, and they see Willie pulling out his gun and shooting at a horde of zombies who come after him.
Holy moly.
The feed cuts off. The 5 people in the lab standing above a corpse from an alternate universe suddenly feel trapped. Johnny freaks out, not wanting to die, and instantly grabs onto Ben, who tries unsuccessfully to shake the kid off. Reed and Sue decide that they have to recreate the experiment. They shuffle through notes and instantly go off to the experiment room to repair the machine. Ben decides that they have to go downstairs and help Willie and anyone who needs help. He takes Johnny with him, who is scared shitless. Sue tells Ben to be careful and take care of Johnny. Ben tells her that he can count on him, always. Reed wishes Ben luck, and he thanks him for having his back. Molkovic goes down with Ben and Johnny to examine the chaos firsthand, because he's like, oh my god. Reed is unsure if he can fix this, but Sue tells him that they can. Downstairs, Ben bashes a bunch of zombies on the front steps of the Baxter building. Johnny still cowers from behind, basically being dragged down. Molkovic is in euphoria, seeing a scientific miraculum. They find Willie amongst the chaos. He's out of ammo, but Ben tells the security guard to bring nearby pedestrians into the Baxter to give them shelter inside, and he goes off to do so. Ben tries his best to hold his composure and keep his little team together. Johnny has a panic attack while Molkovic just watches portals to other dimensions open all over the New York street. Hordes of the undead pop from the portals, along with giant tentacle monsters and life forms that are the stuff of nightmares. Molkovec tells Ben that he never gave Richards enough credit, and is convinced that Reed is a true genius. Jealousy, it feeds only the second rate. After saying this, a portal opens right next to him, containing small, orange-skinned, scavenger-type people. They are the mole men that Molkovec has envisioned. He opens up to them as their creator, their father, but they grab him into their portal, and they rip him from shred to shred. The mole men, right after this, direct their attack towards Ben and Johnny, escaping their universe into the main one. Upstairs in the lab, Reed and Sue examine the other Earth engine. Sue suggests that they make the device smaller, concentrating the energy, being able to focus it better. Reed agrees, but asks how they get rid of all these monsters. Sue thinks if the other Earth engine only targeted anomalies from other dimensions, they would be dragged back to where they came from. It's ingenious! But how do they target them? Reed notices the alternate corpse of Willie, and the two scientists examine his body. He's filled with particles of another universe, so they can extract those from his body and incorporate the particles with this device. It'll take Reed 30 minutes to build the device, and Sue 15 to extract the particles. Sue tells Reed it's time to get back to work. Downstairs, Ben passes the time by fighting off monsters that the multiverse has in store, while Willie, he ushers in civilians to safety inside the Baxter building. Ben finds Johnny cowering behind a dumpster. He asks him, what the hell is he doing? And Johnny tells him that they aren't the guys for the job. The real heroes are right down the street. Ben tells him that there isn't any time for this. You think you're the only one who got a raw deal in life, kid? Look at me, I'm a thing. But someone has to step up and act like a man. You're enough, kid. Trust me. Johnny hears Ben's words and steps up. His power activates and his body is engulfed in flames. He flies and hovers next to the thing. Ben tells him, flame on, kid. The two charge at the monsters and fight them off. Upstairs, Sue injects the foreign particles into the device. Reed titles the machine the Ultimate Nullifier. Its function, to drag foreign elements into an unknown pocket dimension with no chance of escape. They can't do it in the lab and realize they have to go downstairs, where the chaos is hot. Reed and Sue go downstairs, passing Willie and the civilians, mentioning that they have the situation completely under control. They walk outside to a multiverse bonanza. Monsters, zombies, mole men, and only the Thing and Human Torch are holding them off. They have to activate the device before the portals spread across the city and more monsters and God knows what show up. Reed tells Sue that they have to go get Ben and Johnny out of the eye of the storm. Sue tells him she has that handled. Over the years, she picked up this little trick. Sue conjures a force field around Ben and Johnny and pulls them from harm's way to her and Reed. Sue uses the force field to surround her and the rest of them. The creatures try to penetrate it but fail. Reed readies the device, saying that he's sorry if he fails again. The three look at him and tell him, family's never perfect. Reed counts down from 5 until activating the device. 5, 4, 3, 2. The countdown is interrupted by a giant green interdimensional monster breaking through the ground. The monster grabs Sue in its giant claw, lifting her in the air like King Kong.
Cthulhu.
Reed drops the ultimate nullifier in the shifting ground. It falls, and he stretches down through the cracks after it. The Thing and Human Torch attack the giant monster and try freeing Sue, but it's too powerful. Deeper underneath the ground, Reed stretches further and further and further, looking for the nullifier, but he can't find it. His mind is filled with doubt, thoughts of failing, his friends dying, but then he clears his head. All he thinks is, one step, Reed. One step at a time. He hears the beeping of the nullifier and sees it on a nearby piece of rubble. Up in the chaos, Ben and Johnny continue to fight the giant monster. They manage to free Sue, who falls out of its fist but is caught by her husband. Sue kisses Ben, telling them that she missed those rocky lips of his. Reed comes up from the rubble, nullifier in hand. The others see him, and Ben gives him a nod. Reed points the device towards the monster and says, it's clobbering time. He activates the device, summoning a giant portal above, dragging in the foreign creatures. The green behemoth, zombies, mole men, and rest fly to a portal, leading to a dimension of nothing. a negative zone. Since they're filled with the same interdimensional energy, our 4 heroes are also dragged towards the portal. Reed stretches out to Sue and Ben, and they grab onto his 30-foot arm. He holds on like hell, waiting for all the monsters to clear until he can close the portal. Johnny notices some civilians in the crossfire of wreckage flying and flies down to save them. Coincidentally, it's those kids who were talking shit before. Ben holds on to Sue, protecting her at all costs. Reed sees them both. The reality of his and Sue's time together being over hits him hard. But he holds on tighter. The monsters all make it in the negative zone, and Reed closes the portal. The city, the people, his friends are safe. The 4 gather. Reed uses his extended arms to group hug Sue, Ben, and Johnny. They feel awkward at first, but they give in. They're approached by the people who even are some news reporters. What happened? What are those monsters? Who are you for? Cut to black. 2 months later, we intercut to different footage. The city being rebuilt and cleaned up by firefighters, civilians, police, and our 4 heroes. Willie dedicates a plaque near the front desk with special words written on it, dedicated to Dr. Arthur Molkovec, scientist, hero, the best. The Baxter Building is filled with aspiring scientists looking to intern at the newly established Future Foundation. Several applicants of young and eager minds hope to meet and possibly mentor under Dr. Reed Richards. Some of these names include A. Cho, R.R. Williams, B. Whitman. Johnny is on a talk show in his blue supersuit with a giant 4 on it. He's hawking his fame as the new hero in town. Someone in the audience asks, "Who'd win, you or Spider-Man?" He chuckles, responding, "I'd answer that, but I don't think Spidey could handle the burn." The audience laughs and applauds as Jimmy Fallon claps and moves in his seat uncontrollably. Ben and Sue sit on their porch in Charles, Maryland, hand in hand. They watch the sunset and feel a true sense of pride in each other and in themselves. They got this far because deep down they accepted themselves and their choices. Reed sits in his therapist's office for a 3rd time, but is now clean-shaven and joined by Sue, Ben, and Johnny. They all sit on a fancy couch, talking to the off-camera doctor. Reed says that he's glad that things aren't back to normal, but they're back together. Johnny remarks, "Kind of super glued back together." Ben tells the kid to shut the hell up, and Johnny tells the doctor that it's going to be a long, windy road ahead. Reed says, "So, same old, same old." The doctor sits across and he's happy for them, but he has one question. "Why didn't you ever come to me and ask me for some help with the portals?" The therapist is revealed to be Dr. Stephen Strange, master of mystic arts. Reed tells him that next time they'll be sure to give him a call. Dr. Strange remarks, "Fantastic." Cut to black. Post-credits scene. In Reed's lab, he sits alone and toys with the ultimate nullifier, seeing if it can be upgraded for personal travel. Next to him, a different kind of portal appears. An older gentleman walks out of the portal, greeting him. "So, you're the new guy, huh?" The older gentleman is an alternate version of Reed Richards, played by Ian Grufford.
Oh my god.
The Fantastic Four will return.
Oh my god.
Oh my god is right. That better be an oh my god.
That is totally wicked, my guy. I loved it so much. I really did. I love instead of them going to different dimensions, the dimensions came to them.
Yeah.
You know, and those are the threats that the Fantastic Four had to handle business.
Yeah.
And the fact that we get to see like a tease of that Marvel zombie universe to me,
I know.
not
I knew
only
you'd
adds
like
to
that.
the fact that like because one thing I really liked about the direction of what Josh Tranks' Fantastic Four was going for, but did not succeed, was the horror element of receiving these powers and going to places that we don't understand, right? I love the fact that those zombies introduced that idea that like we can't mess with things that we don't understand because it will come back and bite us literally in the ass. You know, so
and the
that's
zombies,
wicked.
the Marvel zombies were introduced because of the Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah. And
what the hell?
I love that reveal in the comic too, where it's like this happened in this universe and now they're taking over every other universe. That's really cool to me. It's a tease because we haven't seen the hero zombies that, you know, obviously lead to a very horrific future.
Yeah.
But I love the themes of human connectivity, acceptance between the family. I love the fact that they learn that things aren't perfect.
Yeah.
You know, families do learn, they grow, but most importantly, families, they learn to forget wrong. You know what I mean? And I love that we get to see these characters handle that. I love the way that you adapted these characters for the Marvel Universe in this point in time right now. How they're going to adapt them. This is exactly what I want to see. I want to see Reed, the whole team, Dr. Doom at that MIT presentation. I think it would just be a beautiful way to show us that these characters have been existing in this universe already. They just haven't become the heroes that they were destined to be yet. And this is their journey. It really was awesome. I love some choices that you made. I think one of the controversial ones is definitely Ben and Sue being married together, and that whole relationship. At first, I was sitting back to hear why you did it, and I completely understand why. I think it's just to show that, people change, people grow, but
it's 8 years.
It's been 8 years, and you still feel that love and trust and faithfulness that Sue and Reed have. And who knows, maybe in the future that could grow.
I don't know.
Into
maybe.
something that they rediscover together.
Maybe.
Because the Fantastic Four is all about discovery. And it's so interesting to have a character like Reed Richards who pretty much knows it all, but he can't quantify yet the power, the feeling of love. And I think that fascinates him. It draws him towards it. And that's something he wants to learn organically. Not control it, not force it. Organically. Lead him there. And it's a stretch for him, but he'll get there.
Man.
I love that he learns it through the 3 other characters who, on an IQ scale, are much lower than him, but they teach him the importance of family, love, humanity, and I got all those vibes from this pitch. I really want this to happen. I actually think you should copyright this and get a patent for it just in case something similar does happen. But the whole idea with Johnny Storm as this failed performer, somebody who doesn't feel special because everybody is. I really like that because now we're getting that perspective that Syndrome kind of had, but on a hero, in a hero's eyes,
and also
it's
Mysterio.
Devastating. Yeah, and Mysterio as well.
Yeah, man. Damn. I was watching a lot of Breaking Bad while writing this. Honestly, if Vince Gilligan were going to do any superhero thing,
on God,
it would have to be the Fantastic Four.
On God, I want that.
Yeah.
I also can't wait just for the science aspect. Fantastic Four should show us the peak of science.
Yeah, that is part of the main conflict in this. There's no villain in this.
Yeah.
Which is something I really want. The relationships and the conflicts within them is enough to push these characters where they need to be.
Dude, the whole Mo-Man beat was hilarious because you expect him to be like
the villain
of the movie, but the idea of Mo-Man is so ridiculous.
Well, it's comic booky,
I love that it plays on itself when he's like, you probably get that epic.
My children!
My children! Like, it would be hysterical if that happened, man. I think the obstacles for the Fantastic Four themselves are their own powers, their own internal struggle based off of what occurred to them, and like themselves as characters, like their family, that family drama.
Absolutely.
I think it's enough.
This needs to be a drama.
It's enough, and if we get to see that, then I'll know that we're in the right hands because that's exactly what the Fantastic Four represent. It's all about family. Like Vin Diesel needs to be in this. I'm serious.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. So, based on this pitch, first of all, I know that you mentioned the controversial element with the Ben and Sue thing.
Yeah.
Was that the only thing where you were like, what is Julius thinking here? Like, what?
Yeah, I think that was the only one because it's hard to imagine Ben doing something like that as a friend, just because it's like it's it doesn't seem like something family would do,
Mm-hmm.
but they are at a different place, and it's kind of out of respect, like Ben and Sue's relationship. It's not out of lust or previous urges that they couldn't resist from.
Or
It
even- yeah.
happened naturally.
Or even spite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also speaks to their relationships more. The fact that they're like, okay, I'm okay with this. I love her. I love him. They make each other happy. I'm good where I'm at now, as long as I'm in their life and
Yeah.
we understand the situation. I'm all for it.
Mhm.
That to me is a really strong showcase of how mature a healthy relationship could be between this family. And that's seriously what I want to see. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see the complexity of everything that comes with the package within a family.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful way to display it.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know, dude. This is this was an interesting pitch to think about, because I've said in the past that a lot of the mainstream fan casts for the Fantastic Four aren't what I would prefer.
Yeah.
Like the biggest one, I think, is John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic.
That's the biggest one. Yeah.
That's and along with Emily Blunt.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure if the Emily Blunt thing does come to fruition, the John Krasinski might come in.
Yeah.
And,
do you think they could play these versions of these character?
I don't. I don't think John can play that stubborn, close-minded Reed that I was thinking of. Actually, when you were talking about it, I just couldn't stop thinking, personally for me, Andrew Lincoln, because I think I could totally see him just be completely closed off. And because as Rick, he is kind of stubborn in that show, and he's all about, like, I know what's right, I'm calling the shots, you do your thing, you're on your own.
Yeah.
But I know what's right, nobody can fix my calculations or whatever. And
Respect my authority.
And I see that. I see that with this version of the character. With John Krasinski, I have a harder time seeing him as what Reed is. Reed.
Not even just based on this.
Yeah.
Based on this comic right here.
Yeah.
The cartoons we've seen. It's hard to really pick. And I just finished rewatching The Office. You know, so I had a lot of Jim. It is hard to think. I'm not saying he couldn't do it. I've never said he couldn't do it.
I could see him more as a Johnny Storm, than Reed.
Right.
Because with Reed, he's such a specific type of character.
How would you diagnose this version of Reed? I'm sure if a doctor listened to this podcast and they heard about Reed, I'm very curious how they specifically would diagnose him.
Yeah.
Probably give him Asperger's or something.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. I definitely think he's I think he's unaware of some social cues, definitely, and how certain things can affect others.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't hit him until later, until the consequences occur.
Yeah.
And
damn.
I just find him to be a really interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
And in recent comics they have Reed as the villain, right? And I would love to see hints of that within this movie. Like, what happened if this man was not on our side?
Well, if
this mind was tapped in the wrong direction.
I remember us talking about that
how scary
on the phone a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And it was while I was writing this. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the most defining things about Reed, I think, is that he's so smart it's a problem for both good and evil.
Yeah, it should be extremely alarming. Not only if he turned, but if somebody were to access his intelligence. He's probably so smart for his own good that he can't even comprehend it.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool superpower that he didn't just magically get. Like, he was just born to be
absolutely
the smartest man.
Absolutely. And it's amazing.
It's really, really cool.
What do you think? I'm going to ask you a couple things because I'm sure you got excited from them.
I really want to see this. I really
Doom.
want to see this.
Victor.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect way to bring him in as well. We've talked about on previous podcasts how they can change the origin of him, and I'm totally cool with them, supplementing Sokovia for Latveria. I think it totally works, and I do like that connection with him and Iron Man.
Already.
Because I know a lot of people have an issue with Far From Home and Mysterio being attached to Iron Man, but I honestly
Really?
loved it. Yeah.
People have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I got worried because I wrote this before and we saw how far
Yeah.
from, I was coming up with it months and months and months. And then I see that and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, no, but to me, it only makes sense for this adaptation of these Marvel characters because Iron Man started it all. This is essentially Iron Man's universe, and the Chaos Theory is linked to him. Everything it's a chain reaction linked to Iron Man. So I love the fact that Doom is kind of like, he would kind of be like another evil version of Tony, because he feels like he has to put a suit of armor around Sokovia, and he's the only one that can do it. He's gonna learn the mystic arts. I believe he's gonna become a mastery of technology from Stark. Even though he doesn't want to use it, I think maybe he's already had a piece of it already.
Are these your predictions?
Maybe, yeah. That's just what I'm predicting.
Well, let me just say right now. Obviously, there was a post-credit scene, so there's a sequel in the works.
Oh,
son.
man.
You better get ready for October. It's coming out October.
I love the title. I can't wait for the suits. It's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big deal seeing them. Their powers are different from what we've seen in the MCU. It's been missing, and the universe will feel fulfilled just by seeing the powers, honestly. Like, when Johnny finally hones into his own power and feels confident in what he's doing, disregarding the fame aspect, but actually being more than just man, it's going to be sick, man. Flame on,
Flame on,
you know,
kid.
Flame on's going to be dope. It's clobbering time. It's going to be dope.
I knew that.
Like,
I threw you a bone at the very end when I brought Ian Grufford as an older...
Ridiculous.
I mean, I pulled some CW shit with that.
That's ridiculous. I think he's a perfect older version of Reed, and who knows what younger Reed can learn from older Reed. Mistakes. It actually reminded me of how they used Spock in the first Star Trek from J.J. Abrams. That relationship I really loved.
Oh, man. Dude, if they made a movie in the 90s of the Fantastic Four, Leonard would have been the Reed Richards.
He's the guy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I actually wouldn't, Leonard could have been the guy, and then I could actually see Zachary being that younger version of his Reed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Look, Fantastic Four 90s film starring Reed Richards, Leonard Nimoy, and William Shatner is the Thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
That's really cool to think about.
Funny enough, I was thinking about the actor who played Roy in The Office as the Thing while writing this.
Yeah, that's who I want.
Yeah. There you go. I speaking of Star Trek, I've always thought that Simon Pegg would be a sick Reed Richards.
Yeah.
That's who I was thinking of while writing this.
He'd be great. I think it definitely should feel like Star Trek in a way.
Yeah.
Just that whole exploration, the wonder and exploration. That's definitely what I want to see with these characters. Going farther than ever before,
And about Spider-Man in.
Yeah. Oh, and that whole Spidey thing is just, come on. I gotta see it. That was Spider-Man's first crossover with the Marvel character, the Fantastic Four.
Come on now.
You gotta see it here.
Come on now.
Hoping for Apple to buy Sony.
What you want, son? All right, I think that's all we have. It's been near an hour of talking about Fantastic Four. Get ready, everybody, because I'm going to tell you right now, there is a sequel coming out next October. Not next October. October's next month.
I can't wait for it.
You get ready. It is the first draft is done. Second draft is going to be worked on very soon, and then we'll see what happens from then on.
Oh, also want to mention one last thing.
Sure.
I loved how the suits came in. Their radiation suits, and they happened to have them on when they were saving the world.
Yeah. Well, hey, shout out to Jonathan Hickman, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Valve, because they made Half-Life, and I was playing a lot of Half-Life while coming up with this. All that good stuff. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I want to thank you. Shout out to everyone who made it through this podcast, this narrative podcast. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Get ready for the part 2. And I'm Julius.
And I'm Angel.
It's been 3 years of the GOAT podcast. We're near 3,000. Next, we'll get to 30,000. It will be because of you. Goodbye, everybody. Peace out.